Hi guys, happy Friday. I'm back at it with another live. This is going to be the last live this week. I do them Monday through Friday on various topics based on requests I've gotten from you guys about topics you want to hear more about. Today we're going to talk about fish. And so I'm going to share out to my group Plant Empowered Bon Vivants as I always do, and then we're going to get started. And if you have any questions, whether you're gonna watch live or on the replay, please do chime in. All right. Fish. So what do you guys think about fish? I would love to hear comment below because really one of the pet peeves I have and I have studied a lot about every animal-based foods, plant-based food, is that I hear people say they eat healthy and fish in the same sentence. And while we've been taught to think that fish is healthy, it really isn't so much anymore, the way that we're fishing, the way that food production is going on. But fish is widely seen as the best protein sources and the only important or significant source of important long-chain omega-3 fatty acids. So that's really the main part. There's so many pescatarians out there now that sort of are proud of the fact that they're eating fish, and as a result, fish and fishing have been put on some sort of pedestal, and health authorities are recommending people consume at least 2 servings of fish every week. Certainly where I'm from in Norway, it's like fish is like God, that's like the God of foods. You have to eat fish, to be healthy, to reduce your risk of heart disease and so forth. But what people don't talk about is the toxins in fish that are rampant, which we'll talk about today. But essentially what authorities are saying is that in order to protect our hearts, we have to consume chemicals that put us at risk for brain damage, cancer. Fish isn't as holy as we thought, and that is really the case in today's modern world. So I'm going to go through 5 reasons why I think you should probably rethink your choices if you're still eating fish. Number 1 is, the biggest one. I posted an article of overfishing and the state of the oceans on my page yesterday night. That is so the overfishing and damage to the oceans is really something that we really need to take a close look at. More than 90% of the global predatory fish population has been wiped out. 90%, guys. And more than half of the wild fish is gone. So while everybody thinks they're eating wild fish, probably 95% of what is going on, what fish is here is actually not wild, it's farmed. It takes 2 to 5 pounds of wild fish, for instance, to produce 1 pound of farmed salmon. It's just not sustainable. Shrimp trawlers will kill up to 20 pounds of marine life for every pound of shrimp. Just imagine how much of the life in the ocean is being wiped out just to get a small percentage to us, because we've been told that fish is so healthy, when in fact there are many, many other things we can eat that provide just as much, if not better, nutrition for us. And honestly, that's the biggest thing I hear is that, well, I only eat wild caught fish. When you're requesting wild caught, you're still sending a signal to the fish industry that you want fish. There's no way to sustain people with wild caught fish with the numbers we're dealing with now, and the wiping out of the oceans. So what is the solution? They're doing farm fish. And it's estimated really like by 2048, no matter what, the oceans will be depleted of fish. But still people are being urged to eat more fish. But going back to the farm fish, which, I'm from a country of Norway, I think that's where farmed salmon, for instance, was really invented. And it's really disgusting. It's rampant disease, bacteria, infections, all kinds of things happening in there because they're so close. It's almost like, think about farm land animals. We talk often about, I talked about chickens the other day, talking about pigs, cows. They're all crammed in together in a barn. Well, these guys are crammed in the water in nets, and there's no place for them to go. And just because we don't see them, and because they don't have legs or they're not petable, we just think, meh, fish, you know, I can eat fish and no problem. They still have, you know, they're still sentient beings, and they still can actually feel. I would recommend you check out fishfeel.org. It's a really great site that tells you all about fish, and the way we've been taught to think about them might not be true. So really, I'm not going to go into that today, but number one is really thinking about the overfishing and the damage we're doing to our ocean should be the biggest reason, no matter what. Even if fish was healthy, we should think about what damage we do to the oceans, and we need the ocean and the life in the ocean for the planet. Going back into health reasons, number two is really that fish and fish oil has been linked to the increased risk of diabetes. That's according to a Harvard study, because fat accumulation within muscle cells can lead to insulin resistance, which in turn contributes to diabetes. So we've often been taught that sugar is the devil, right? But really what really causes diabetes is fat. I'm going to talk about that in a separate Facebook Live, but if you have any questions about that, please do let me know. So people who eat no animal products have less fat in their cells and much less risk of developing diabetes as a result. And a low-fat vegan diet, for instance, has been shown to improve type 2 diabetes. So if you have diabetes, type 2 that is, type 1 can't be reversed, but type 2, you can actually try and reverse it with a low-fat vegan diet, and many people have succeeded. In fact, you know, in Europe, it's shown that fish eaters appear to have a 38% increased risk of diabetes. And on a per serving basis, that comes out to be about a 5% increase in risk for every serving of fish one has per week. And to put that into perspective, a serving of red meat per day is associated with a 19% increase in risk. So just one serving per day of fish would be equivalent to a 35% increase in risk. So why might fish be worse than red meat, you think? Well, studies found that the insulin producing cells in the pancreas doesn't seem to work as well in people who eat 2 or more servings of fish per week. I found that really interesting. And it may not be related to omega-3s at all, but rather the environmental contaminants in the buildup of contaminants in fish. So again, it comes back to what types of fish you're eating, but no matter what, our oceans are polluted. I don't think we need to discuss that, and the fish are living in it. So, you know, just put it together. Number 3 is that most fish are farmed, and that's back to what I was mentioning in point number 1, right? Is that even though labels in grocery store read wild caught, that is almost never the case. It's been actually shown many times that they mislabel it on purpose. Farmed fish contain high levels of PCB, which is a man-made chemical, unhealthy high fat content, antibiotics, and mercury levels. Just recently, Swedish scientists found that rising temperatures from the climate change could actually boost mercury levels in fish by up to 7 times the current rate. When you go out to a restaurant, chances are you're never going to get wild caught, because they're watching their numbers, and that's going to be more expensive, and they're going to just go and buy fish by the truckload. So they're always going to be farmed. And the dangers of farmed fish are huge. Only even 20% of fish eaten in the United States have been imported from China. And that's a fact. A seafood exporter was caught feeding fish a partial diet of feces from hundreds of pigs and geese in an attempt to cut costs. So this is what happens here as well. Fish need to eat, right? Farm fish. And the high levels of omega-6 fatty acids in farmed salmon and farmed tilapia could actually contribute to inflammatory diseases and arthritis and even cancer. So, nobody wants to really think about what goes into fish, what does that cost, but it's really kind of disgusting. And so that's number 3. Most fish are farmed. That's just something really important to think about. Number 4 is that fish is said to be the main source of DHA and EPA, which is the fatty acids with the omega-3, right? But often the fish that are richest in these fatty acids, they contain the highest levels of mercury. So again, what I was saying earlier is like, which one do you want? Do you want to get these fats and then also have the chemicals ingested and take that risk? Mercury, of course, can cause serious health risks, including damage to the hearts, kidneys, mind and nervous system. In the brain, mercury poisoning can cause motor dysfunction, memory loss, learning disabilities, depression. There's a slew of things from there. Of course, I mean, I hope we can all agree that mercury ingestion is not ideal or good for you at all. So the whole concept of enough DHA and EPA might be problematic. I hear about that a lot in the nutrition world, is like, you know, really focusing on that. And these are not essential nutrients, and there is no recommended daily average for these fats. But for those who want to include them in their diet, like me, vegan supplements provide the exact same DHA and EPA you would get from fish. I know that some people think that supplements are somehow inferior or whatever, but I don't understand that, because if you can get the same fatty acids in a way that's sustainable and that doesn't contribute to the cruelty that is an inherent part of the fishing industry, wouldn't that be better? I mean, isn't that a better option? I always wonder about that, like why people are so insistent on keep damaging the environment and the animals. You know, you can get ALA from flax seeds, hemp seeds, chia seeds, walnuts, soybeans. And if you eat ALA-rich foods diligently, but your blood work still shows that you're deficient, then consider taking supplements. But those are some foods you can start adding in, and you don't need a ton. You need a couple of tablespoons a day. It's easy to sprinkle over your salads and your smoothies, whatever. Microalgae supplements, like unlike fish, for instance, are all free of heavy metals such as lead and mercury, and industrial pollutants such as polychlorinated biphenyls, the DDT and dioxin, for instance. So this is much safer than fish oil tablets. It's another thing I always get questions about. I even talked about that with a client today. Which is worth noting that many have sued manufacturers because these supplements, fish oil, have contain toxins, and they go rancid very often, so they cause more damage than good. So instead of fish oil, there's flaxseed oil, there's other sources of these fats, omega-3 rich fats and so forth, that you can get from much healthier sources than fish. So wanted to summarize the dangers of eating fish before I go on to the last part, and then I'm going to give you some suggestions for what you can eat instead, because as me, I grew up on fish. I grew up on salmon, herring, you know, all these things were part of my diet and part of my memories and part of my family meals. So don't think that it was so easy for me just to kind of throw it out the window. But when you start to research, you know, really the evidence is there. And so it was really hard for me to turn the other way and not, you know, and ignore the facts. So the summaries of eating fish: 1, the fat you eat is the fat you wear, as they say. It is a fatty food. And people say, oh, it's healthy fat, when in fact 70 to 80% of the fat that contains, that is in fish is not healthy for you. It's saturated fat. Number 2 is fish cause an increase in blood cholesterol, similar to that caused in beef and pork. And the highly acidic proteins in fish actually help accelerate calcium loss, so bone brittle, and contributes to osteoporosis and kidney stones. So if you've had kidney stones. And the blood thinning properties of the omega-3 fats that may help prevent the formation of clots, which you hear a lot, also increase the chance of bleeding complications. And then the anti-inflammatory properties of good fats can suppress the immune system and increase, again, risk for cancer and infection. And as I said before, when in the diabetes portion, omega-3 fats actually inhibit the performance of insulin, increasing blood sugar levels and aggravating diabetes. And then finally, the high intake of fish, which I didn't mention, can prolong pregnancy and increase birth weight, promoting a greater chance of fetal death, cesarean section, birth injury. There's many reasons why pregnant women have said not, been told not to eat fish. And I always think about that. Like, if there's a food they tell you not to eat when you're when you're in this sort of precarious situation as being pregnant and basically have to watch your health, and then there's a food that they say don't eat it, it's always a sort of warning sign for me. Like, why would I even eat that on a regular basis if I can't? Nobody says don't eat a carrot if you're pregnant, So just think about that. Number 5 is because of the confined space for fish, there's a big risk for contamination and disease. You know, as I said, the fish are fed antibiotics. Salmon and tilapia are probably the worst fish you could eat. Tilapia, of course, because it's man-made, it's farmed. It's not, there's no wild tilapia. And keep in mind where fish are from. You know, basically they live in what has become a sort of a human sewer. Not particularly clean food. So that's why when I said in the beginning, when I say eating clean and I see fish on the plate, I'm like, it doesn't make any damn sense if you do the research. So bottom line is, no matter how you feel about this, and I know I can be kind of straightforward and it might rub you the wrong way or it might trigger you somewhat, the fact of the matter is that fish is unsustainable. Much why you might be concerned with using plastic or plastic straws as if it has an effect on the environment. This is it's a drop in the ocean, pun intended, compared to eating fish. Not only is fish some of the dirtiest, most contaminated food out there, but our oceans are being depleted of fish and wildlife in alarming numbers. 25% of fish tested had plastic in their guts. So essentially, you're eating fish, you're also going to be eating plastic most of the time. And additionally, there's been some researchers from the University of Ghent in Belgium that found that seafood eaters ingest up to 11,000 tiny pieces of plastic every year, and dozens of particles become embedded in tissues and can cause complications. So I don't know if I've convinced you or if you're just more strong, sort of like committed to eating fish, but if you don't believe what I've told you today, or if there's something that's kind of not sitting right, I would urge you to do your own research. I can certainly provide some links to some research studies, and you can actually do your own research to see what you think about when it comes to fish. But I don't want to just leave you hanging, say cut out fish, and then you're going to be like, well, then what? Because I don't really like telling people what not to do and then not giving them you know, sort of a replacement or some sort of suggestions for what to do instead. And you know, for me this was really difficult because I thought, you know, I have a food blog, right, called Arctic Grub, which specializes in veganizing Norwegian food, and it's all about Norway, Norwegian culture and such. And of course it's a huge part of Norwegian cuisine is fish. And I was like, well, how am I going to make that plant-based? You know, that's kind of one of those foods that are really difficult to replace. But I was so amazed to see that actually, you know, you don't think about these replacements. Hi, Henriette. You know, you don't think about these replacements that I'm going to tell you that they could even remotely taste or feel like fish. But let me tell you, I am not going to be the vegan that tells you, oh, eat this, it just tastes just like it. But I will tell you, it is going to provide the same sort of feeling and the same sensation, if you will, or memories. Because as much with, as I tell with every kinds of food, it's not so much about the actual fish or meat or eggs, but it's really the condiments and the flavorings that you add to it that is going to sort of remind you of what you've been eating that may have contained fish. So for instance, I have this crab cake. You know, who doesn't love crab cakes? You know, crab cakes are great with tartar sauce and it's nice party food. And I make these from either chickpeas or these hearts of palm. I buy them in cans and they flake up like fish, and they are actually, and then I just season them with the same exact you know, sort of fish seasonings that you would think of, like lemon juice, capers, mayo, and so forth. And it's really, and celery, and it's really the same exact, except you don't have that nasty sort of fish aftertaste, right? You need something to replace pickled herring. Henriette, you were just in time, because that was actually my first, you will never believe this, but what I used, I pickled herring recently. I don't know if you saw my recipe on my website, sunnygandera.com, but I did use eggplant. And eggplant kind of looks like herring when it's kind of pickled. It has that sort of grayish look, brownish look to it. And it actually, when you pickle it, it gets sort of that same texture. And it is a sponge. So, you know, when you're pickling it, you have the acidity of the vinegars and the salt and the, you know, sugar, it actually tastes very, very similar. So I'm gonna do another one because I did one with beets and the beets sort of took over, but I'm gonna do one because I used to work for a restaurant here in New York called Outweigh, and it's a Scandinavian restaurant, and they specialize in all these different flavors of pickled herring, which were delicious. And again, I'm not going to say I didn't go vegan because I didn't love the taste of meat and eggs and dairy and all of that. I did it because I knew it was going to be healthier for me to leave those off my plate, and also better for the animals, which I really have compassion for. So these flavors of the herrings were just so amazing, like this mustard espresso. There was a matjes, which is more sort of a creamy, sour creamy based herring. So I'm going to start doing that with eggplant, and then you can see what you think. Awesome idea. And I know that restaurant. Oh, great, Henrietta. Yeah, that's where I met my husband. He was actually a chef there. Amongst all the tall Scandinavian blondes, and I picked the short Mexican. Go figure. You know, you sort of opposites attract, as they say. But he is an excellent Scandinavian cook too, so he kind of understands that flavoring profile that, you know, and I use a dill, and I just recreate that, and that brings me to actually mushrooms. So there's all these mushrooms that are, you know, the trumpet mushrooms. You can use to slice them into thick circles, and they become scallops, and actually have a very similar texture. And again, you season it. You can add a little dulce or you know, some sort of like kelp, you know, to recreate that seafood flavor. So you use the mushrooms for scallops. You can use it in this fish gratin that I make in Norway, which would be flaky fish with, there's potatoes in it and some sort of cream sauce. Of course, you can use cashew, whatever. It's so easy to replace dairy now with plant-based alternatives. And then it's topped with breadcrumbs and baked in the oven. And then it's served with boiled potatoes and, you know, melted butter. And oh my God, it was like 10 times better than the fish variety. So check into different sorts of like wild mushrooms, because the texture is really similar and can be that flaky. So mushrooms is one, eggplant is another, tofu is one. Again, tofu just soaks up all the flavor. You can experiment with different textures. You can saute it, you can bake it, you can crisp it up, you can bread it, and they can become excellent fish and chips. There's also some other, some banana type of plant I saw that makes really excellent tofu. I mean, the vegan chefs are so freaking creative. I'm always so amazed every single day when I see it. Carrots is one. I don't know if you've seen Henrietta, but I make smoked salmon or lox from ribbons of carrots, and I just marinate it in these this liquid smoke and different types of oil, and you put on some dill, and it has like, I never thought it could work, but it actually is delicious. And I put it on bagels with cream cheese, or I put it on open-faced sandwiches with my tofu scramble, and it's absolutely amazing. You can use seitan and tempeh if you want fish sandwiches or fish fillets. Of course, yeah, you saw that, right? Yeah, it's I didn't come up with that idea. I can't take credit for it. I saw it in another site a long time ago, but I tried it and I was like, let's see, I don't know. But it really just, again, I think it has to do with that smoky flavor, and I'm not going to say it's exactly the same, but then again, you know, I think I overate smoked salmon. We had smoked salmon all the time at home. So I was like, ugh, I don't even want it. It's too fatty. It's like all fat and salt, and it was just too much. So I really just, you know, preferred these as my smoked carrots. And then, of course, if you don't want to make things from scratch, which I know many people are sort of, you know, you can go to things like Gardein. They have these fishless fillets that are quite good. There's a new company called Good Catch Food. They have this tuna, you know, if you ever bought canned tuna or tuna in pouches, they are exactly that, and they taste incredibly similar to tuna. And, you know, of course, there's no mercury in this one because it's not fish. I tried it when I was in Miami at the Plant-Based Food and Wine Festival, and I've been making different recipes with them, and they flavor it with different things like Mediterranean flavors and this and that. They get very creative with their packages. They're of course much more environmentally friendly and kinder to the animals. We need a seafood recipe book. You know, I really want to do that, Henrietta, or at least, you know, when I'm working on I am working on an outline for my Norwegian vegan cookbook, and that of course is going to be a major area is seafood, because I find that that's what people struggle the most with. And I find that most of the time when I've served these fishless dishes to some of my Norwegian friends who are very sort of traditionalists and like, I can't give up my fish, much like people say I can't give up cheese. Well, fish is kind of like the second to that, because people think it's so healthy and it's light and it's, you know, clean, and then it's nothing, you know, like that. If you've heard, you know, me talk throughout today, you'll know that that's not the case. So Henrietta, thanks for the motivation. I'm definitely going to be thinking about other ways to creatively replace our friends the fish, help the oceans, help the environment. Please do consider to drop fish off your plate, and if you need any support, any help at all, I'm here, and I've created these amazing new programs now that are at a reasonable rate, lower than normal, because I've been feeling called, like I said, to reach more people and to connect with people one-on-one. So these programs are all one-on-one. They're varying in lengths, 5, 8, and 12 weeks, and you can join them no matter what your goal is, whether it is to lose weight, whether it is to just, you want to become 100% plant-based, or you want to go hardcore vegan, or you have no plans of going vegan or plant-based, but you just need creative ideas. You know you need to eat more plant-based foods, more vegetables, but you just don't know how that's going to work in your schedule. How am I going to act in the kitchen? How am I going to cook? What I'm going to plan for? All those things I'm here for, because as I said before in all my other lives, you don't have to do this alone. Much like Henrietta, you're saying she's helping you with getting fit. She's an excellent trainer. And even me as a personal trainer, I need a personal trainer, because I'm not going to motivate myself. It's much more motivating when you have someone else to be accountable to meet. You have an appointment. Okay, at this time, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to meet this and we're going to work out together, and I'm going to just feel so much more energized. Same with a coach. You know, you can't just be like, well, this week I'm going to, you know, you'll have a set plan. And when we have plans, when we have goals, that's when we reach them. And that people who hire coaches and trainers, you know, you can just see studies, they become so much more successful. They reach their goals much faster when they have an accountability partner, when they have someone there to team up with. So don't feel alone. You don't have to do it alone. It's much more fun when you have someone else along your side. So thank you, Henrietta, for watching. I appreciate you coming on. And please share this. Please check out my link that I will be sharing below onto my programs. If you have any questions, you can DM me or just send me an email at sunny@sunnygandera.com. You can also sign up for my newsletter on my website, sunnygandera.com, where I email out a recipe weekly that will get to your inbox. Thank you so much, guys. Have a wonderful weekend. Try a new plant-based foods this weekend. Report back to me on Monday. Let me know what you think. Bye.